This is Speaking of Pets podcast, where we offer you up-to-date, science-based, accurate information.
Oh, Gizmo! Good kitty. You're such a good kitty.
And they're looking up and howling in unison.
If it affects pets, we'll talk about it. The Speaking of Pets podcast is sponsored by Blue Buffalo Veterinary Diets. Love them like family, feed them like family. Hi everyone, welcome to Speaking of Pets. I'm Dr. Alice Novotny-Jeroman, a board-certified veterinary dermatologist, and
I'm Janet Novotny-King, the doctor's sister. I am not board certified in anything. I'm a pet owner and lover and rescuer, and I'm here to be Alice's sidekick and to help our listeners understand better how to be the best pet parents they can possibly be.
Right.
We love that.
Our special guest today is Dr. Jonathan Deere, who's a board-certified small animal internal medicine specialist at University of California, Davis. Dr. Deere got his vet degree from University of Georgia. Janet, you'll be happy to hear that.
No, Georgia Tech is anti-UGA.
Sorry. Okay, well then he went to UC Davis to get his, he did his residency and his master's, and his special areas of interest are upper respiratory and urinary and small animal infectious disease. So why are we going to talk about honeybees today with Dr. Deere?
Because that's his hobby.
He's a hobbyist beekeeper.
That's right.
He has developed modules to instruct other veterinarians in apiculture. Apa is the prefix for bee. And he's done this along with collaborators with extension agents from UC Davis and Oregon State University. So today is all about honeybees, how they are so vital to our health of the food we eat and also to our economy. So welcome, Dr. Deere. How did a small animal internal medicine specialist get involved with honeybees? Or is the proper way to say it just bees?
Yeah, what's the buzz?
Yeah.
Honeybees to be specific, because there's lots of different types of bees out there. There's native bees, other pollinators. So honeybees, and Apis mellifera is to be extra specific. So those are the European honeybees. Those are the ones that you see in colonies and, being used for honey production. So it's an interesting question. I have been a beekeeper for about 15 years, just kind of a hobbyist beekeeper. My husband read a book like maybe 25, 30 years ago called The Shamanic Way of the Bees. And it's about a particular way of beekeeping that is like very much in touch with the bees and nature. And so when he read that, he always wanted to be a beekeeper. And fast forward to, we were married, we had a home now, and it was a good time to try a new hobby. So we did that. So that was my background. We did kind of a co-op thing initially. What probably you don't know, and probably a lot of people don't know, is beekeeping is kind of it's like having a pet. It's kind of an expensive hobby. You have to pay for the bees, you have to pay for the equipment, you have to pay for the suit. If your bees die, you have to, buy new ones. And so we did a co-op with our family where we asked everybody to give us, I think, like $50 or $100 to be part of our little bee family. And then when we harvested honey, we would give them honey as their dividends. So that was how we got started a long time ago. And then fast forwarding to why am I doing it as a veterinarian? You might know, Alice or Janet, you probably don't know that in 2018, the FDA kind of just buttoned down the hatches about antibiotic prescribing in the US. And so for a long time, if you were in production facilities, so if you were raising cattle or poultry or bees, and you thought you had a bacterial disease in your colonies, you would just go to the feed store and buy Tylosin or oxytetracycline or something like that, and you just give it to your animals. And in a lot of ways, that was done both to treat disease, but also as growth promotion in a lot of these animals. So animals sometimes grow better when they're on antibiotics. And clearly that's not a good thing, right? To be giving
Right.
cattle just like, buckets of antibiotics. And so in
Right.
2018, the FDA changed the legislation, or the rules, I should say, and said that if you want to give antibiotics to a food producing animal, you've got to have a veterinarian involved. And so for cattlemen and poultry farmers, that's not a big deal. They were already working with veterinarians. It did kind of rein in their use of antibiotics, which is good.
Yeah.
But they already had vets they were working with, production vets and whatnot.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
before this, you could go as a cattle owner and just buy it over the counter.
Yeah.
You didn't need a script. Okay.
Yeah, only
Wow,
certain.
I had no idea.
Yeah, not all antibiotics. There were only certain ones, but yes, it was kind of like a Wild West. There was
Yeah.
very very few rules. You could kind of do what you wanted to. Yeah, so then 2018 happens. You've got to use either a prescription, which you're all familiar with, or what's called a
Yep.
veterinary feed directive, which is a kind of a different word for a prescription, but basically, if you use a veterinary feed directive, it's you put an antibiotic in their food rather than like in water, for instance. So if you want to do either of those things, you needed a veterinarian. And believe it or not, honeybees are food producing animals. They are
Right.
insects, but they are food producing animals. We eat their honey, of course. Some people eat royal jelly, which is a product from bees. Propolis is something else that is sometimes used in natural remedies. The bees' wax, of course. So a lot of food gets into our food system via bees, and the challenge is that if you're giving them antibiotics, which was rarely happening, to be honest, but if you do, then that could end up in the honey, in the wax, the propolis, whatever. And so I saw that, and so I should give a background about what kind of internal medicine I do. I do mostly infectious disease here, so I care a lot about antibiotic stewardship, resistant bacteria, prescribing the right drug, and so that happened. And I was just talking to some people who work here at Davis in the entomology section, who do a lot of bee stuff. They focus exclusively on bees. And we just got to talking, saying like, look, this is we're kind of uncomfortable bedfellows all of a sudden. There's beekeepers who are used to doing their own thing, and they have never interacted with veterinarians before. And then veterinarians who are they're used to herd medicine, they're used to production medicine. These are concepts they know about, but they're not trained in beekeeping. They know nothing about bees. They know nothing about the diseases, and so we got together to develop training courses, basically to bring veterinarians up to speed on this sort of thing.
It's so fascinating. I was listening to a couple of podcasts about bees and beekeepers. They seem like a real unified group. I mean, I'm sure there's dissension among certain hive people, but they really seem to care about the health of these bees. And like certain people were driving like 500 miles to go pick up some bees instead of having them sent. And I mean, there's a lot to this.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's kind of like three big types of beekeepers. There's the commercial beekeepers who have like, I forget what the official definition is, but something like over 500 hives, like huge time. They have like, and they come to California in the spring for almond pollination, and they go to, to Texas and Florida for blueberries and melons and whatnot. So that's a big part, and they do a lot. They know a lot about beekeeping. They've done this for a long time. There are what are called the sideliners, who are like kind of in between. Like they have a lot of hives, they know a lot about beekeeping, but they're not. Maybe it's not their full time job, or they do other things. And then there's people like me who are hobbyists, who have somewhere between. Right now, I only have one hive, but we've had up to like 5 hives at a time. And so I think there's different philosophies and mentalities among those three groups, but I think in general you're right. I mean, I think everybody cares about their bees, just like a food producer really cares about their flock too. It's both economically important to them, but you get to know these animals too, and it's kind of crazy to think that you get to know honeybees, but you get to know them and they get to know you too.
Well,
One of the
that's your, Alice, that's your queen question.
Oh yeah, I'm going to ask that. But I have to tell him, one of the podcasts I was listening to, she's a veterinarian and she was a practice manager. And I'm like, wait, this must not be the right podcast because I wanted to hear about bees. And so she took what she learned from bees to her practice to manage her practice because they're so social.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. And then she said, I kind of got burnt out and I just wanted to take off for a while. So I took 8 months as a sabbatical and I went all over the world, including Montana, which I thought that's in the US, but okay. And she spent all this time with beekeepers and she said it was like her zen. And of course now she raises bees. I just think it's kind of like people that work with turtles. They're kind of their own thing and they're very spiritual with the turtle. And I find it's just amazing to me that bees are like so busy and that you could find that very kind of but
Yeah.
you can apparently.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that. But so we had it was the SAVMA symposium here at Davis 2 weeks ago. So SAVMA is like the student professional medicine association, and they were here for their annual symposium, and we hosted a bee lab for them. And I was talking to this group of students who many of them had never interacted with bees at all. They had taken our web modules because that was our prerequisite to learn a little bit about the biology and whatnot. But I was giving them this kind of pep talk because some of them you could tell were kind of a little nervous about it. We're doing a hive inspection, and so we're pulling the frames apart and looking, and one of the things I said to them was exactly that you've got to be zen, you've got to be calm because bees are very they're very they pick up on things. They pick up.
Horses do.
Yeah, they do,
Yeah.
and they use
Yeah.
they use pheromones a lot within the hive. Pheromones are a big part of how they communicate, and I think they pick up on our pheromones too. And so partly, you've got to be kind of calm because you don't want to trigger them, but also if you start, say one is kind of they sometimes get a little aggro if they're done with you, you've been in the hive for a long time, or it's windy or something like that. And they'll start buzzing you. They'll kind of pop in your face. You have a veil on, but they're warning you, saying leave us alone. And human nature would be to go like that, get them out of the way. You can't do that because that really pisses them off, and you're going to get stung probably. So what you have to do is kind of breathe in, maybe take a step back, give them a break for a second, and you've got to continue on with your job. But you've got to really work with them, and not let the anxiety that you might feel get to you, because it's going to have a negative impact on the whole interaction.
And you wear the white suit every time you check the...
Oh, yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I do. So not the
Yeah.
white suit always. I always wear a veil. So the veil is, the hat with the kind of hood thing that goes over to protect your face and your neck. And then I usually wear some kind of glove, whether that be just exam gloves is often what we use. Sometimes as a beginner, I used the thicker, their lambskin or sheepskin gloves. And I think if you're going to be doing a lot, sometimes having the entire suit on is helpful, just because I think you're more likely to aggravate them a little bit, and naturally bees don't want to sting you. That's not their MO. When they sting you, they die, and I think they know that, right? And so stinging is a last resort, but at the same point they will sting you if you're endangering their hive. And so if you work with a lot of bees, you're probably going to get there with some of the bees. And so if it's just one or two hives, just having a veil is enough, because you might just be in and out, and they don't mind, and they kind of get used to you. But if you're doing a lot, if you're treating them, if you're inspecting every frame, you're probably a little bit more likely to have a bee who wants to see you away, so to speak. And so having the full protection on is more helpful then. Yeah.
So there seems to have been a whole resurgence, not just in beekeeping, but in local honeys and the importance of bees.
and save the bees. There's
Really
these
see.
myths going around that you hear both sides, Dr. Deere. Oh, there's not enough honeybees, and oh, there's abundance of honeybees. So what's the scuttle on that?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I don't know that I have the answer to that. I do think that there is a greater recognition about the importance of pollinators in general in our food supply, and the pollinators play a huge role, whether that be honeybees or native pollinators. That we wouldn't have. We talked about them being food producing animals because of the stuff they produce, but we also need to consider their food producing animals in the fact that like many of the things that we take for granted that we get from a grocery store wouldn't be there or would be in much more limited supply if it wasn't for pollination. And so I don't know exactly why that's more in the forefront. I think that it's always been important. I think that in the 2000s or so, there was this thing called colony collapse disorder that became big news, where honeybee hives were being lost across the country, and that kind of made its way into the mainstream a little bit. And I think people just maybe they think that a little bit more. It's really tied into climate change too, which people care about climate change. And one of the things that's really cool about being involved with beekeeping from a veterinary perspective is this concept of One Health too. So I'm sure you know what One Health is, but probably a lot of listeners have never heard this before. But One Health is this concept that as a species, humans, our health and our success and our wellness is tied intimately to the health of other animals, to health of plants, and health of the environment. Like it's like a kind of no-brainer, right? Like we all know that, but we kind of forget that a little bit and think that we can go it alone. And I think bees are a really great example of you've got to think about the entire ecosystem, because bees are so important to us for food producing. They rely on us in large part for these commercial bees, but they also are being impacted by pesticide use, by climate change. Wildfires are big threats to bee producers in the California, for instance. So yeah, I think there's just a kind of a whole lot of reasons why people care more about bees than they used to.
Hey, did you know that Blue Buffalo makes prescription diets that are formulated by animal nutritionists and veterinarians? And they're used for dietary needs such as kidney support, gastrointestinal support, weight management, and our favorite, allergy and skin problems. They make a food allergic diet that's an alligator-based called NP, or a hydrolyzed salmon-based for dogs and cats called HF. So please, ask your veterinarian about Blue Buffalo prescription diets.
So how much honey can you expect to yield from one hive?
It's a little bit.
Are all hives the same size?
No, yeah, they're all different. There are some standard sizes. So the standard boxes you see, they come in like medium, deep, and honey super. So those boxes that kind of stack on top of each other. The standard ones are what are called deeps. And if that entire, so there's 10 frames in each box, and they're parallel to each other. So if you were to extract honey from one of those in a full deep box, I think what I recall, so it weighs about 50 or 60 pounds, and most of that is honey. So of course there is some wood and there's wax and everything, but it's about like I think when we've extracted a deep, I think we've gotten about like 3 to 5 gallons out of one of those.
Wow, enough for the family that you're sharing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, they're investors, so we had to pay them off.
Exactly. Right. We got to give them their dues.
Their dues.
Yeah. So a lot. And
Wow.
yeah, that's just from one hive.
What's the difference between filtered honey and unfiltered honey?
That is
I've seen that. Unfiltered or raw honey. I guess maybe it's
Isn't it all raw?
Yeah, I
it's not
mean,
processed.
Mother used to buy raw honey.
I
Remember,
know, but
Janet?
it's not processed. Do you
no,
know what I'm
it's
saying? Like
yeah,
you
They
heat
run
up
it through a filter or
fat.
something? I mean, I don't
I
know.
don't
not
know.
yeah. I mean, most people don't. It's like you said, it's raw. It's
You just
typically
take it right
raw.
off of there and
hmm I mean,
okay.
I guess maybe. So one of the things about honey is that it's some people think about it for its health benefits, and it's
Yeah.
you might think about it for its like allergen kind of components.
Yep.
It can be, kind of desensitize us. So there's a lot of reasons to that's good for you. But then I don't know if either any of you have children, but you may or may not have learned that you can't give honey to children.
Yes.
In the
And
first year.
yeah, do you know why?
No, I
Botulism.
just knew it was a big no from the pediatrician.
Yeah, it's the botulism. Yeah, so
Oh,
the spores or the Clostridium botulinum, and I don't remember if it's the actual toxin or the organism, but there's
Yeah.
very very low levels in honey. But newborns and infants have are very susceptible to it, and so maybe there is pasteurized honey. That's the only thing I can think about. I've never seen
Yeah.
pasteurized honey, but that
yeah.
maybe that's a thing. But usually it's raw. I have never seen it labeled as filtered. You're right; it often says unfiltered, but at the same
Yeah, it
point,
does.
like
Yeah.
I've never seen filtered.
yeah.
And
So
what's Manuka honey? Is that just a different species of bee?
No flour.
no, that's a
Manuka honey that, has healing
yeah.
properties topically?
I think it's always from New Zealand.
That's
I
right.
think it's from a flower or that
Yeah,
plant.
I think it's from the acacia tree, some sort of acacia.
Hmm.
Because the properties that certainly the taste of honey, and I think to
Oh,
some degree, the components of it rely on the neck. So honey is just nectar that has been processed and evaporated, basically. So it's an invert sugar that has been digested by the honeybee. They have add enzymes to it. This is like kind of the gross thing about it. They regurgitate it back into the cell,
Oh.
and then they sit and they fan it. So they fan it to evaporate out the water.
Huh.
But essentially, it's just nectar. And so whatever they were eating is going to be what goes into the honey.
Okay.
And so I
So
think
whatever
those.
flower or
Mhm.
pollen. Okay.
Yeah, so that's why you see like orange blossom honey or wildflower
Yes.
honey, because it
Yes.
depends on where the bees were and what they were eating, and yeah.
And there's such a taste difference. Janet,
hmm
oh yeah.
I've bought different kind of honey, and some of it's real strong, some of it's
Yep.
light. It's fascinating, really.
It
That's
is.
my queen question. So
Okay.
what's the deal with the queen? I
Yeah.
mean, you've got
What's
to
with
have
the
the queen,
queen?
right, for the other bees to stay there, right?
And do they
Yeah,
ever
One queen?
switch? Like, do they ever move? Like,
Like
do
they
you
have
locate
fighting queens or
to a
no?
different
they do
hive?
have fighting queens.
Oh, see? Two
Queens
women
are,
in the
gosh.
kitchen.
Okay, yeah. So the deal is that so
Yeah.
in one hive there are three kind of types of bees. So there's going to be the queen that you just asked about, the workers, and the drones.
Oh,
And so one of the cool things about this is going to go a little bit nerdy. So
that's
maybe the
okay.
We love
science people
I
nerdy.
are
love
okay.
nerdy.
So the bees are what are called haploid diploid organisms.
Yes.
So so humans are diploid. That means we have 23 chromosomes, and we've got two copies of it, one from our mom, one from our dad. Female bees are diploid. So similarly, they have one set of chromosomes from the queen, one set of chromosomes from their father.
Mhm.
Um, but males are haploid. So males are the drones, and they are only I'm not actually sure if they are only 20 only chromosomes from the father or from the mother. I should know that, but anyway, they only have one set of chromosomes.
You'll look it up. I know you will. That drives me nuts when
He's
I
not
know I
going to
Yeah,
know
sleep
something and I
tonight till
never.
he
Yeah.
looks it up.
exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the queens and workers are both diploid. The only thing that separates them is what they're fed. So when a queen lays an egg, these tiny, tiny little eggs. You can see them with your bare eye, but they're tiny. For the first couple of days, I think it's like 2 to 3 days, all eggs are fed royal jelly. So they're really nutrient rich, has lots of probably growth promoters, other things that help the egg to germinate and to form into a larvae. So the thing that differentiates a worker from a queen is a queen gets fed royal jelly her entire larvaehood, whatever that's called, until she pupates. Whereas workers, they have it for the first couple days, and then they're just fed honey and pollen and whatever else they need. And it's something about, it must be something epigenetic about it, that something about getting fed royal jelly allows her to develop in a very different way from a worker bee. So if you ever see a picture of a queen versus a worker, they look very different. Queens have an elongated body. They're a little bit more kind of, they're kind of skinnier, elongated body. Sometimes they have less stripes on them. And they are, so they're going to be in charge of reproduction, and they are, they kind of maintain the hive, so to speak. Okay, so those are the two. Drones are haploid, and so if a queen wants to lay drones, she lays eggs that are unfertilized. And so I think I just answered my own question. So they're just ova that are unfertilized. Okay. So what happens is a queen is, so say the queen died for some reason, and that may be just because of old age, or something happens to her. You're inspecting it and you squished her, or she dropped out of the hive. What happens is, because of the pheromones, the bees recognize that there's not a queen anymore. It means they say it's not queen right. And bees get really agitated when there's not a queen there. But what they will do is they recognize there's not a queen, and they know they have to make another queen. So what happens is they'll start feeding a handful, maybe like 5 or 6 cells, just royal jelly, so they make a new queen. And then queens, I forget what the incubation period or the gestation period is for queens. I think it's like 18 days or something around that. A queen will hatch. She knows that she wants to be the only queen. There's only ever one queen in a hive, or there should only be one queen in a hive. So what happens is like a fight to the death then. Then she will go and find any other queens that are either hatched or queen cells and go and kill them all. So they are, it is pretty vicious.
Okay, how do they kill them?
They sting them. Yeah, so queens are the only bees that can sting multiple times without eviscerating themselves. Yeah.
It's like the queen consort.
Yeah.
It's like a Twilight Zone or something. I mean,
It's
who
amazing.
ever found all this out? This is just fascinating.
Yeah, it is really wild. It's a whole different little ecosystem that's happening in there. So anyway, she's now the queen.
Yeah.
She has all the workers. There were workers who are going to take care of her. But so the thing about the queen that people don't realize, everyone thinks like, oh, being a queen, that must be great, right? You have people doting on you, people feeding you. That is all true. What they don't know is the queen only leaves the hive once ever, with one exception. So once in general is the only time she's going to leave the hive, and that's when she goes to mate with drones. And so I talked to you about drones already. So drones are going to be produced by all other hives too. And there's this area in the atmosphere called the drone zone, which is, I think, about like a mile up or something, where there's lots of drones.
Oh my
The queen
God.
goes up there.
Like a brothel.
Exactly, it is.
A mile up.
Wow.
Mile up. The wildest thing is, so the queen goes up there, she mates with multiple drones. After the drone mates with her, they die. I think they're something to do with their reproductive organs are like pulled out from inside their body or something horrendous like that.
And all the men are going like this.
This is like incredible, but go on.
I had no idea.
So wait, so then the
Up there, this is
reproductive
all
things
happening.
get sucked
Yes.
out. Yeah,
Yes.
it's dead. Yeah.
Yeah. And
They
then
have to get a private jet up.
Oh
then
my
they
God.
have a good time, kill all those men, and come back down.
yeah,
And she
so-
knows exactly where to come back down to.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
amazing thing. Exactly. She knows where to go back to. And then she's got this thing called a spermatotheca, which stores all the sperm in her body, so that when she's ready to lay eggs, she can like then fertilize the eggs as they're being laid. But so getting back to, that's the one time that she ever leaves the hive. So she's, people think of her as like a as the queen, and that's her name, but she's really like a servant. All she does for the rest of her life is lay eggs, and lays
Right.
about 1,000 eggs a day.
What's the
And
lifespan of a queen? How long do they live?
yeah, it
With
varies.
no injury to her, I mean.
I think so. I think a natural lifespan of a queen in a healthy hive is about 3 to 5 years. So she's
Oh,
the oldest out of most of out of the hive. Commercial beekeepers will do what's called
uh-huh.
requeening most years. They will
Mhm.
pull the queen out and put a new queen in because young queens tend to lay more eggs. They'll have a more productive colony if they
Right,
have a young
right.
queen.
Oh my God. Janet,
Yeah.
did you have any idea
Yeah,
that
what you
all
were
this
getting
was going
into?
on? So there must be a certain time of the year. I mean, she's not in Ohio, like Janet and I are from Ohio.
Yep.
She's not going like up a mile up, in January, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Got
So
to be nice weather.
it's only they only come out of the hive in for like kind of scavenging, foraging activities when it's nice weather. If even like so in California here, we have our hive in our backyard. It doesn't get
Mhm.
as nearly as cold as Ohio, but it gets kind of cold, and you will
Yeah.
see on a cold day like maybe one bee coming out like every 20 minutes, and that's partly to they may need to use the restroom. They don't do that in the hive. They go outside. They're
Really?
really clean little
This is
creatures.
this is like
I know.
bizarre.
No, I
Like they
think
go to
it's
a little rest
fascinating.
area and then they
I'm
come.
scared because I
Yeah,
might get interested in this. This is
This is
really
yeah.
neat.
fascinating. And don't how far do they travel? Don't they go like 2 miles away and then come back?
Yeah, I mean, I've read anything up to 8 miles. I don't.
Yeah,
It's
I
hard
read
to.
that.
There have been some studies where they like put a little like radio monitors on them, and they go for a really long way. But getting back to your question,
Yeah.
so yeah, in the cold season, they're only going to go outside the hive if it's absolutely necessary, like maybe to take a dead bee out or do something that's critical.
Yeah.
And then once the what they call a nectar flow, like when plants start like flowering and there's lots going on, then that's when the hives start like they start building in size, and there's going to be drones that are born. There's going to be new queens, and the queens are born throughout the year because something could happen to a queen at any point. So
Yeah.
I think
Right.
that making a queen and the reproduction phase is probably is happening anytime the hive is active. So from in California, it'll be from like March through till like November or so, and in colder places a shorter period of time.
Blue Buffalo Natural Veterinary Diets offer a natural alternative in nutritional therapy. With their in-house research and development team with over 300 years experience in well pet and veterinary therapeutic diets, more than 600 scientific publications, and more than 50 U.S. patents. Blue Buffalo Natural Veterinary Diets.
Are you teaching beekeeping?
Yes and no. So I mean I am still just a hobbyist. I think it's really
Doesn't sound like
fascinating.
it.
I've read a lot about it, and we've been part of a beekeeping club for a little while. But I recognize that I am not a master beekeeper. So there's just like there's master gardeners
Yeah.
associations. There are master beekeeper clubs. So we have one in California, and that's the people I work with are the people who teach the master beekeeping. So what my role has been and what I see my role as doing is trying to get veterinarians interested in it. And so what that looks like is that we do a discussion in the second year of the curriculum here with our population health block. So they're learning about like epidemiology and herd health. And then we do this pollinator health session with them to kind of introduce them to the concept that like, hey, maybe you'd consider dealing
Yeah.
with bees. I think in the U.S. It'd be unlikely that being a beekeeping vet or a bee vet would be your 100% your job.
Yeah.
But if you live in a place like Montana or Florida or Texas or California, there's a lot of bees here, and you could maybe have a side business, or if you do, food animal practice, you're going to be in an area where there's bees already, and you can just help out as needed. So yeah, my role is to try to get vets interested in doing it, and then there's actually some really great organizations. The Honeybee Vet Consortium is one of them that has resources about beekeeping for veterinarians, and they are way more knowledgeable and skilled than I am.
You know,
So,
okay, Jen.
are you and your husband, now, be honest, is it 50-50 the workload with these bees?
Oh, the bee thing.
No, not at all. He actually he's the big time beekeeper. I'm just
Oh,
riding on his coattails. Yeah. He's done a lot more work. I I really enjoy it, and I like this part where I can mesh vet med with it.
Yes.
At the same point, I work in a teaching hospital here. I'm an internist. I deal with dogs and cats all day long. I'm not at home. He works from home, and so he sees the bees. He works with them a lot more. So it's gone up and down over our beekeeping career, but yeah, he definitely is he wears the bee suit in the relationship.
That's right. I have to ask you about the virus and the mite that transmits it. Is it true that it's just a matter of time before everyone's affected as far as the bees?
Yeah,
Is there a way you
Oh,
can
wait.
prevent
First of all, what are you talking about? What mites?
sure.
Okay,
I can
I'll let
explain a
Dr.
little bit. So, there are probably the biggest health threat that is a disease health threat to bees right now is a mite called the Varroa destructor. So this is a mite. It's pretty small, but you can see it with your bare eyes.
I was going to ask you, so you can see that mite. Okay.
Yeah,
The bee is so small. The mite must be really small.
they are. I mean, they're about the size of probably the tip of this pen.
Like a tick. Yeah.
And what happens is, so they when just before a larva pupates, so like they're this like larvae looking thing, and as they're about to pupate, they get capped over with wax, and these Varroa go into them. They latch on to the bees, and they like kind of suck out, whatever might suck out of you. I think it's called hemolymph in insects. And so that's the way they live, but they also transmit diseases. And so one of them they transmit that's pretty well documented is something called deformed wing virus. So then the bees are born and they've got these kind of funky looking wings that don't really look like they work very well. They kind of look like they're folded. Wow. Sometimes they're just odd shapen, they're smaller. And I don't know, I have no idea how well they can fly. I would imagine it really impedes their ability to fly. Yeah. The good thing is that bees do a lot that is not flying. They have a lot of roles in the hive too. They have nurse roles. They have queen, like the ones that are taking care of the queen. They have funereal bees, like they take the dead bees out. They have guard bees who try to sting you if you get in them. And then the last role they have typically before they die is a scavenger. So that's when they go out or forager is what they call it. That's when they go find honey, pollen, etc. Nectar and pollen. So getting back to your question, is it going to affect all bees? I think the hope is no, because Varroa has been around in the U.S. for, I think, about 20-ish years or so, maybe a little bit more than that. And it's still a big problem. But we're learning more about it, learning about better ways to treat it, better ways to breed what are called hygienic bees, which are bees who are like better about getting rid of them. And there's actually vaccines that are being produced too. There's one that I've read about for Varroa, but there's other vaccines that are actually commercially available for other bee diseases. So I think that we're moving to a place where hopefully we can manage this better. And So I can tell you that with really effective treatment, you can really minimize the mite load, and thus the likelihood of these diseases is much lower.
So if your hive gets this thing,
it might, yeah.
Yeah, how do you? There's nothing to get rid of it. There's no treatment.
There is treatment. Yeah, there are treatments that are approved by, I think it's the USDA that approves miticides.
Wow.
So there's a whole lot of things. There's some pretty natural things. So Thymol is one product, which is like
Oh.
a product from thyme. It's really, really concentrated. There's a thing called Hop Guard also, which is a product derived from hop. So a lot of these things are in the wild already, in nature, I should say, and have insecticidal properties. And then there's other things like that are also natural but are more chemically derived now, called formic acid and oxalic acid. So these, again, they're things that you treat the hive with to try to kill the mites. The problem is they're insecticides, right? And so you're trying to keep them at a level that are going to kill the mites but not kill the bees.
Right.
And
Wow.
it's a delicate balance of maintaining that, so that you don't, in particular, if you try not to kill the queen. That's a devastating loss, to kill the queen, and that does happen with some of these treatments.
And
Well,
they probably, and Food and Drug Administration probably doesn't want the insecticides in the honey either.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't think as a consumer, you wouldn't want them. I mean, you would be able to, like, it if you put Thymol on a hive while they're storing honey, it's gonna not taste very good.
True.
Wow.
I think some of those products are actually naturally in the hive already, and so maybe less of a concern. Like oxalic acid, I've read about, is a naturally occurring compound, and so it might already be there. But certainly like hops or thyme, like you that may not be your cup of tea to have honey that tastes like that.
Yeah, exactly.
This has been fascinating, Alice. We got to wrap it up. I think I'd love to have our listeners
I
learn
don't
more
mean to
about how
sit here
get
with my mouth
started.
open like, wow, but there's so much, and
There is.
and to think of their society that they have,
Yeah.
like Dr. Deere was saying about, they have like the funeral people and I mean, who knew?
The hunters, the gatherers, the
queen.
people.
Yeah,
Right.
there's like a lot.
Series.
The other cool thing about them is that they're all individual creatures, but a lot of times people refer to the hive like as a superorganism. Like the hive itself is the organism rather than like the individual. And you can see that in the way they behave, like this kind of selflessness of like stinging, the intruder to defend the hive. And they kind of have this group think in terms of the way they operate. They share food, they bring each other up. It is really fascinating, and they're a really cool species to work with.
And no poop or pee in the hive.
No, exactly. They're like cats. They're fastidious.
Thank you so. This has been so.
I know.
informative. We have to ask you our guest question though.
Okay.
Oh,
And I
okay.
should say, what is your pet, human, or bee peeve?
What is my pet
Pet.
peeve? I mean, so
It could be about a human.
I'm gonna go back to the bees, because I got asked this question like when I was talking to students recently, like what is the biggest misnomer about bees?
Yes.
And I think it's a pet peeve also, because it gives bees a bad name. But people often say like, "Oh, I don't like bees. They're really aggressive," and that's just not true. Bees are not. They're not aggressive at all. They can be defensive. Like if you jump into their hive and shake them around,
Yeah.
then they're not going to like you. But those insects that are buzzing around you at the picnic and trying to get your food, those are not bees. Those are probably wasps or hornets. And I mean every insect has its role. I don't want anything to do with those ones though.
Right.
They can be a pest, but honeybees they're calm, they are docile, and they're really important. And so I think they get a bad name, unjustifiably so.
But I think it's improving, because I think people are really caring more about that.
Yeah.
And you also see more honeybee logo
Yep.
stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Which can't be bad.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of devil logo,
Or
Just
roach
saying.
logos.
Right.
Yeah.
Logos. There's a lot of potential there.
Well, before we go, what pets do you have, Dr. Deere?
I'm actually currently petless with the exception of bees. Yeah, We had a dog and a cat for years. Who it's been 3 years since we lost our cat, and miss having both of them around. But I think when the right creature wanders back into our life, we'll get probably another cat first. But right now it's just the bees, and a lot of travel because we don't have pets.
Oh, that's right.
That's
you're
true.
right. The travel part is kind of on hold when you have I agree.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has
is
been
amazing.
just fabulous. I have to thank Dr. Carl Jandry for getting me in touch with you. And that could be a good thing for you. That could be a bad thing for you.
No, that's
Dr.
great.
Jandry
Yeah.
just was raving about you. He said, you've got to talk to Dr. Deere about bees. So this was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was really nice talking to you and meeting you both
Appreciate
too.
it.
Janet,
Thank
do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us. And we appreciate our listeners. If you have any questions, be sure to email us. Have a great day and enjoy some really good honey. You'll appreciate it a little more, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Thanks,
That sounds great.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks for tuning in today. We hope you learned some valuable information about making decisions about your pet's health.
And don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe on podcasts because we love to have those likes. Thanks so much for listening.
That's actually really good. You could both go bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
How about woof woof?
This episode of Speaking of Pets podcast was sponsored by Blue Buffalo Veterinary Diets. Love them like family, feed them like family.
Follow us on social at Speaking of Pets and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
The Speaking of Pets podcast is an SLA video production.